A quick disclaimer before I begin, I'm a relatively new player to this format, and I don't really understand all the nuance that goes into a competitive analysis, so this won't really be an analysis. All I'm going to be talking about here is a Pokemon that I find interesting and a metagame that I find interesting. You can completely disregard my opinion here if you want, because that's all it is, my opinion. When you're starting out in a new metagame, a lot of new players look at the sample teams and say, man, that's boring. I want to try something more interesting. Then, once they put together their team full of random Pokemon and get demolished within 3 matches, they'll quickly learn that putting together a bunch of suboptimal Pokemon is not going to cut it, and then switch to a sample team and start mindlessly slaving away on the ladder like everybody else. Once a competitive player starts to reach a certain level, they'll begin to understand why lower ranked Pokemon are ranked that way, whether it be due to consistency issues, they only fit on certain teams, there's a straight up better version available, etc. Now, I'm nowhere near that level yet, but I do want to take a look at a Pokemon that has sort of fallen into the weeds in modern competitive discussion. It gives it a sort of mysterious charm. That Pokemon, of course, is the topic of this video, Registeel. Registeel is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time, mainly just because I like big, bulky, annoying Pokemon, and Registeel fits that bill perfectly. Of course, to understand why it's not commonly used in Gen 3 OU, we have to look at what it can do and what it has trouble with in the metagame, so let's do that. Let's start off with its basic traits. Registeel has a mono steel typing and an excellent defensive stat distribution. In a metagame where permanent sand and toxic spam form a very consistent strategy, being immune to both is very helpful. These traits make Registeel a little bit difficult to take down indirectly. It also takes advantage of leftovers healing very effectively. Officially, Registeel has a ranking of UUBL and appears in less than 1% of Gen 3 OU teams. Personally, I think this usage number is much too low. I mean, just look at Registeel. It looks like it's about to start spontaneously rapping. But if we go back and take a look at those base stats, we'll notice that the attack and special attack are pretty mediocre. Because Registeel's special move pool is pretty poor, it has to rely on physical coverage off of a base 75 attack stat, which is not very good. So what does Registeel have access to? A lot of interesting stuff actually. Like its other 2 Golem brethren, it has Thunder Wave, Curse, and Explosion, which are all pretty good in their own right. I think Thunder Wave is a good fit for Registeel. It has plenty of bulk to be able to take a powerful physical attack from fast offensive threats, and then it can use Thunder Wave to make them much less scary. Curse can be used to turn Registeel into a bit of a win condition. I think the idea is pretty similar to something like Snorlax. Use Curse to boost up, and your high special defense to take special hits very easily. If you get low, you use Rest. Then, once you've stacked up enough boost, you can use powerful physical coverage and go to town. Something interesting to note here is that compared to other setup sweepers like Calm Mind Suicune or Curse Snorlax, Registeel is able to leverage its steel typing to use leftovers healing in Sandstorm, which most other rest setup sweepers have a hard time doing. Of course, this is not without its flaws. This easily invites in Pokemon with moves like Roar or Whirlwind to end your fun. Explosion is novel on Registeel, if only because it's one of the few actively threatening things it can do. Because Explosion halves the enemy defense in this generation, it has an effective base power of 500. Even with Registeel's mediocre 75 base attack, that ends up doing quite a significant amount of damage. Also, if you use it before the opponent acts, it skips their turn, although with Registeel's low speed, this doesn't come into play too often. As far as attacking moves that don't kill you go, it seems Registeel has an okay selection. You saw Rock Slide and Earthquake earlier, but it also has access to Seismic Toss and Superpower. Seismic Toss does a clean, if unimpressive, 100 damage to every target bar Ghost types. And if you're running Seismic Toss as your only offensive move, you can spend extra EVs in defense and special defense because you don't care about attack investment. I feel like Superpower is harder to justify using on Registeel, it just doesn't have the power to back it up. Also worth mentioning is Hidden Power Steel. With the stab boost, it's more powerful than Earthquake, but there are a lot of steel resists in OU, so I'm not sure it's worth it. To round things out, Registeel can swap Thunder Wave for Toxic if it wants to harass ground types, and Counter, which can turn the tables on otherwise hard to deal with foes like Metagross. It also prevents Doug Trio from killing you at full health. As a funny side note, don't forget that in this generation, Counter works on all types of hidden power, even the ones that are considered special moves. Counter would only really make a difference against something that had hidden power fire though. With that out of the way, I think I can start talking about what its strengths and weaknesses look like to me. Registeel looks like a bulky wall/support Pokemon. Registeel can take powerful special attacks that other steel types aren't comfortable dealing with, like a Zapdos Thunderbolt or Starmie Hydro Pump, and it can strike back by spreading status with either Toxic or Thunder Wave. There's also the Curse set, which looks powerful in the mid to late game whenever all of its checks are eliminated. Because it's so bulky and can heal in sand, I think Tyranitar is probably a natural partner for Registeel. But after taking a closer look at Registeel, there's a lot of weaknesses here. Registeel just does not have the tools to deal with a significant chunk of the OU metagame. As just one example, 101 health substitutes from the likes of Celebi and Suicune are basically impossible to break through. And if you're running Seismic Toss instead of Earthquake, you can throw Jirachi in there as well. And given that it's weak to spikes, and one of its teammates is likely Tyranitar, it probably means you'll have to dedicate a team slot to a Rapid Spinner, though I'm not 100% certain on that. Beyond that, whatever team you put Registeel onto will probably have to deal with a wide net of enemies before Registeel can do its job effectively. That is to say, Registeel is very passive, and it needs a lot of support from its teammates to function well. Accordingly, because designing a team with Registeel in it feels like designing an LSAT problem, I'm not going to go through something like team building here. I would not be able to do it justice and cover it in a comprehensive enough way. That being said, I did make a team with Registeel in it. It's probably not good, it's probably not consistent, but I will post it in the description, and in a little bit, I'll show you a replay that gives you some semblance of what Registeel might look like in action. Okay, so here we have, let me see, I've got my lead Registeel paralysis spam team that I was talking about earlier. Once again, this is in the description. Now, of course, I'm not a good player, so this is not going to be optimal play, but I do want to give my own spin on how I play Registeel, at the very least. Of course, there are competitive players, and there are replays out there that have good Registeel play. I think Behe has done a couple, though I can't find them online, and there's been a couple of Registeels that have showed up in the recent ADV Revival tournament. Without further ado, so the idea here is fairly simple. Paralyze as much as possible, and then go to a Machamp, which is waiting in the back. I don't know why I clicked recovery here. And, of course, this was a terrible, terrible play. My Rapid Spinner is down, and this team really does not like spikes at all. Oh, at least Skarmory is paralyzed, but that's another problem with Registeel, is that it does not deal very well with Skarmory, and so this team features Zapdos. Unfortunately, it is HP Ice Zapdos, so the Swampert will not be dying anytime soon. And in comes Skarm again, trying to get all the spikes up. I guess at this point, once Skarm gets 3 spikes up, nothing else matters, so... And this is defensive Jirachi with Wish and Fire Punch and Body Slam, of course, for more paralysis. I was thinking that around here it'd probably help to offset the spikes damage if I could Wish everything in. And here comes Machamp. Of course, when everything's paralyzed, something with base 55 speed and a choice band becomes pretty good. Kind of got greedy here. I thought it would click Thunder Wave or something, or Baton Pass, trying to dodge out of the way, but... And it comes Swampert again. Got a lucky crit. I don't think it mattered too much, though. And it comes Zapdos. I'm trying to make him believe that I have HP Grass. And doesn't quite know yet, but gonna figure out very soon that this is not in fact HP Grass. And then opponent realizes, wait a minute, I can wall the Zapdos with my Swampert. From here, it's just wearing down, trying to get a lucky status, and trying to take out the Swampert because it's really the only thing holding the team back at this point. Of course, Registeel back there does not like Swampert. It does not like the ability. I don't think this is not a rest Registeel. It's a T-Wave, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Curse, I believe. It shouldn't be Curse, for the record. Like that should be something like Rest, or maybe Explosion, or Counter. And comes their Gengar. It's not going to do too much to Jirachi, but I got really lucky there. Could have done something like Burned Me, and then I would have been in a really tight spot. But if you can't burn this Jirachi, then it's just going to keep wishing and protecting. It is, however, Taunt Gengar. I was going to skip forward a couple of turns because we just end up fire punching and T-bolting each other to death. And in comes the enemy Zapdos, of course. Jirachi, being bulky as it is just going to get up a free wish. And back comes Swampert. I was clicking HP Ice, so it wouldn't have killed the Zapdos, I don't think. Or it might have been a roll with Sand. But yeah, this Swampert is really the only thing that's working at this point. And I think this is not an Ice Beam Swampert, because obviously it would have clicked it already. I think it's like Surf Protect, Refresh, Roar, probably? Yeah. I couldn't quite remember. Okay, yeah, Refresh Toxic, so that's... Cash the Protect. And I was worried that the Swampert would be faster than me, but it was a Surf defensive Swampert because this Tyranitar has no speed investment. And in comes Aerodactyl. Not going to kill Tyranitar. And I think just Zapdos finishes this one off. Yeah, okay. So, admittedly, the only thing that Registeel did, the only thing, was paralyze the enemy Tyranitar. And I think it came back later, and it paralyzed the enemy Skarmory too, which I guess mattered, but it got 3 spikes up anyway, so it didn't really matter. So the only thing that Registeel accomplished here was paralyzing the enemy Tyranitar. Because, I mean, like, you had Swampert there, which was annoying to deal with. It was halfway down and there were 3 spikes in the field, and I, like an idiot, sacrificed my Starmie for absolutely no reason. But it worked out with that lucky Jirachi got paralyzed by that T-Bolt, and so couldn't burn, and I could wish up. So yeah, like, this is not a good example of good competitive play, but it's just me fooling around with a silly little team I built. And also, so if you're a professional player, like a professional Gen 3 OU player, and you're watching this, and if you have like some insights to offer on how to use Registeel, please put them in the comments. Put like some sort of forum link where somebody has done an analysis. I've tried to look on the forums and couldn't find much. I could only find like one readily available replay on YouTube. I probably need to do some more searching, but anything that can like shed some more light on Registeel, I would very much appreciate.